This is Democracy Watch. Mark, Republicans are none too pleased right now as a raft of federal judges who had previously announced retirements are now reversing their retirement decisions, considering Biden wouldn't be able to appoint their successors. There's a circuit court judge in the Fourth Circuit. There's 2 district court judges in North Carolina. Of all people, Mark, Mitch McConnell decided to weigh in here, saying, "Never before has a circuit judge unretired after a presidential election. It's literally unprecedented, and to create such a precedent would fly in the face of a rare bipartisan compromise on the disposition of these vacancies." Does it not strike you as the biggest bit of manufactured outrage in history, considering the way that Mitch McConnell specifically comported himself over judges for these last few years? I mean, the fact that Garland was denied a seat because, God forbid, you have a confirmation during an election year, but Amy Coney Barrett was confirmed while votes were being cast.
Yeah, look, Mitch McConnell is a shameless hypocrite, and no one should forget that. You know, people have in the Trump era, I think, have come to view Mitch McConnell as less crazy and less terrible than Donald Trump. Being less crazy and less terrible than Donald Trump doesn't make you not terrible. Okay, right. Mitch McConnell's opposition to allowing Barack Obama to appoint to fill a vacancy on the U.S. Supreme Court. And you're right, Merrick Garland was his candidate. Merrick Garland was his candidate in part because Barack Obama wanted to pick someone moderate rather than someone to the left. Merrick Garland was not necessarily a Democrat or particularly a progressive judge. He was actually just kind of a middle-of-the-road former prosecutor who was on the DC Circuit.
You don't say.
Right. And yet Mitch McConnell refused to let Merrick Garland even have a vote. Even though there were months before the midterm elections. Then, after being sanctimonious about that and talking about how there shouldn't be vacancies filled while an election is pending, when Ruth Bader Ginsburg dies in the fall of an election year, much, much earlier, he rushes through, in a matter of a couple of weeks, Amy Coney Barrett onto the U.S. Supreme Court. So Mitch McConnell, we know any outrage he has about judges is entirely situational. It is entirely manufactured. And my message to Judge Wynn is thank you for staying on the Fourth Circuit. He has been a phenomenal judge, and we are better for having him remain on the Fourth Circuit. And to the 2 district court judges in North Carolina, same to you.
Republican Senator Thom Tillis of North Carolina has now called for hearings over these 2 district court judges who came from his state. Could his threats for a hearing go anywhere? Like, are you allowed to compel a judge who had announced retirement to have to go through with it?
Can you imagine this? They want to hold hearings on 2 district court judges who have decided not to retire, but yet the Senate Judiciary Committee puts out a report about, huge holes in the financial reporting of by justices on the Supreme Court, ethical lapses by justices on the U.S. Supreme Court. And this is not just coming up now. This has been going on now for months. There has been reporting on this. There has been disclosure after disclosure, amendment after amendment by the justices here. And at every turn, the Supreme Court justices have stiff-armed the Congress and said, no. The Congress shouldn't be looking into this. And who have been protecting them? The Senate Republicans. So now, all of a sudden, they've decided that they want to do oversight of judges for nothing other than deciding they don't want to retire. You know what? Maybe they should look at some of their colleagues in the Senate dining room about retirement talk.
This is all happening at the same time that we saw the Senate Judiciary Committee release its report showing how Clarence Thomas had accepted 2 more trips that he failed to disclose on his disclosure form, including one to, I believe, Harlan Crow's some property in New York, and then another one to a yacht. And so would you be in favor, I guess, of having just an umbrella hearing about all of this misconduct happening in the judiciary space and to see what it might uncover?
Yeah, look, I've talked about this with you before, and I want to sort of lay this out. The first thing is, I think Chief Justice Roberts did the court no favors by refusing at the first opportunity to voluntarily go to Congress and discuss these matters. He is not just a justice on the Supreme Court. He is the Chief Justice. His job is to oversee the entire federal courts. And having failed to do that, I think was a real mistake, number one. Number two, I want to raise a question that I have raised with you on my own podcast for Democracy Docket. I talked to Sheldon Whitehouse about this. I don't understand why these justices are allowed to take these gifts at all. I mean, there's, talk about the Overton window moving here, Brian. We are now talking about the fact that they have failed to disclose gifts. Why the hell are Supreme Court justices taking these gifts? Like, why are they allowed to take these gifts at all?
As if the disclosure is the problem here, as if that's what the issue is.
Yeah, and I really think, like, we need to have a conversation about not allowing people on the bench, to take tens of thousands of dollars of gifts or hundreds of thousands of dollars of gifts, period. Not whether they disclose them.
Not taking these gifts from people who have business in front of the court, but so long as they let you know that they've been bribed, then it's A-okay.
I mean, it's just wild to me. I mean, they're not supposed to be politicians who are taking campaign contributions because that's the system we have. I couldn't buy Sheldon Whitehouse. I pointed this on the video. I couldn't buy Sheldon Whitehouse a dinner for $70. And yet, period, not disclosure, undisclosed. Like, I couldn't do that. That would violate his gift rules. And yet we are allowing, these justices to accept these boondoggle trips, and we're just worrying about disclosure.
Right. There was some criticism over Chuck Schumer's deal with Republicans to grant Trump 4 circuit court nominations to fill in exchange for quicker consideration of about a dozen district court vacancies. Can you explain why Democrats should have made a deal at all and not just tried to ram through all of these confirmations, district and circuit court judges, given the fact that we control the Senate?
Yeah. So first of all, you're not going to get me in a bad mood about this. Okay. The fact is Joe Biden nominated and the Senate Democrats confirmed 235 federal judges in a 4-year period. That is a remarkable accomplishment. Before people start nitpicking this, let's just take the big picture here. This has been a historic accomplishment of Joe Biden's that deserves a lot of credit. We oftentimes talk about the fact that Biden didn't promote the successes he had the way he should have, or he didn't get credit for the right things and whatever. This is something he deserves an enormous amount of credit for, and so does Chuck Schumer. I mean, Senate Democrats are the reason these judges have been appointed. And for people who focus on the U.S. Supreme Court, here are some numbers for you. There will be millions of cases that are heard over the next 4 years in the federal courts. The U.S. Supreme Court will hear somewhere south of 400 of them in the next 4 years. So I'm not dismissing the importance of the U.S. Supreme Court, but the ability to nominate and confirm all of these judges to these lower courts, a really big deal. Now, to your question, the fact is that there are some judges that just didn't have the votes. I mean, let's remember the margin that Chuck Schumer and the Senate Democrats were operating with here. This was a razor thin margin. And unfortunately, you had a couple of, I think, soon to be retired Democrats, who were not necessarily going to support all the judges. So he got, he got everything that could be expected and more. If someone had said to you at the beginning of Joe Biden's term that they would confirm more judges than Donald Trump did, and more judges than any president since Jimmy Carter, you'd say that's not possible. And if you knew the margins of the Senate at the time, you would have said it's definitely not possible. So you're not going to put me in a bad mood about this. You all can save your hate mail. You can save your hate tweets or whatever. Like, I am viewing this as an unmitigated success.
And by the way, you've covered this extensively in Democracy Docket, which is the news outlet you founded to focus on everything voting and elections. Highly recommend for people watching right now, if you are looking for a trusted source of news, especially as it relates to this topic, please sign up for Democracy Docket. I'll put the link right here on the screen and also in the post description of this video. Marc, are there examples, going back to the pearl clutching about these few Democratic judges opting not to retire or to unretire, are there examples of conservative judges reconsidering their own retirements?
Sure. Look, this happens routinely. I mean, the fact is that this happened in 2022 when there was a conservative Republican appointee in Mitch McConnell's home state of Kentucky who was going to retire on the condition of a suitable conservative replacement. That didn't happen, decided not to retire. As I recall, this happened with a federal judge in Wisconsin when Barack Obama came to office in 2008. I mean, people are allowed to reconsider their retirement plans. I mean, Lord knows people do it in the private sector all the time, and federal judges do it. And this is just an effort by Mitch McConnell and the Republicans to try to create a controversy around something that was a big loss for them, which was the reshaping of the lower federal courts by Joe Biden and the Democrats in a way that will be really positive and super important for the next 4 years. You know, for everything we talk about how institutions are folding and bending their knee, how the media is not standing up to Donald Trump, you know, the one institution we will need to rely on more than ever before are the courts. So, you know, kudos to Joe Biden and Chuck Schumer.
Well, you know, you have been an absolute leader in pointing out the strength of the federal judiciary and in bolstering the strength of that federal judiciary. So, again, for folks who are watching right now, to support the work that Marc and his team are doing, please sign up for Democracy Docket. I'll put the link right here on the screen and also in the post description of this video. I'm Brian Tyler Cohen.
I'm Marc Elias.
This is Democracy Watch.